achieved.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into Studio Day, Everyday Quarantine. It's nice to have you. Lots of topics for today, including, of course, questions from some of you guys. One about Bradlee Anae, the Cowboys' rookie fifth-round pick. One about the competition in camp between the wide receivers and corners. But I want to start with the NFL roster rankings that came out yesterday. Combination of ESPN and Pro Football Focus. Remember, please remember, give the video the thumbs up. Only if you like it, I guess. If you don't like the video, you don't have to give it a thumbs up. But I think it's good for me. I think. Anyway, and leave in the comments what you want to talk about tomorrow at youtube.com/Jeff Kavanaugh. Make sure you subscribe, get the notifications turned on. Check 1053thefan.com every day. Okay? Great. All right. NFL roster rankings is what I want to start with. Because I've had a relationship with Pro Football Focus that's been at times bumpy, at times glorious, and at times somewhere in between. And I'll give my new official stance on Pro Football Focus. Their grades for the players that I study, I don't need them because mine are better. Their grades for players that I don't study, I'll take them. It's cool. Generally speaking, if they give a guy a really high grade, chances are he's a really good player. And if they give a guy a really low grade, chances are he's a really bad player. And I think they've gotten better over time at it. So, with that in mind, I like the nerds over there too. The nerds are my people. Like Moo and Sam. But roster rankings came out. And what they did is, I suppose they're saying the grades aren't the end-all, be-all. They're going with Pro Football Focus grades from last season and a more comprehensive look at each player's career using Pro Football Focus grades and statistics. Here's how the 32 rosters stack up going into next season. Now, what everybody wants to know is where are the Cowboys, right? Don't worry, I got you covered. The Cowboys are 6th. And I think that's fair. What I want to talk about is, first, let's do who do they say the Cowboys' best players are? And then let's talk about if they're going to be better than the 6th best team in football. It'll be because who is better than the way they have them graded, right? So, according to Pro Football Focus, the best player on the Cowboys is Zach Martin, graded out at 88.1. Second best player, oh, hi, dogs. The second best player is DeMarcus Lawrence. He's really, really good. The third best player is Lyle Collins. Fourth best player is Amari Cooper. The fifth best player is Toni Pollard in his limited snaps. CD, we're not doing that. We're not doing the cry thing while Daddy's making a video. It's just not what we're going to do. We're not doing that, okay? Fifth best player is Toni Pollard. And that fits with, the number of 20-plus yard runs that he had in limited opportunities, his elusiveness grade, the number of forced missed tackles that he makes. So Toni Pollard graded out as the Cowboys' fifth best player, even though he's a part-timer. Sixth best player, Dak Prescott. And that is the end of their, quote, high-quality starters. So that is something that I wanted to look at for every NFL team this is what Jerry would call a blue player. And so that actually is the color scheme that they use for high-quality starters. They do use the color blue. So the Cowboys got 6 blue players. Now, if you want to be the best team, by the way, Tampa Bay only has 3 blue players, even though they're ranked 5th on this list ahead of the Cowboys. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Levante David, those are their only blue players. The Chiefs have 5 blue players, but one of them's in dark blue, which is your elite players. That's Pat Mahomes. There are other blue players, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Mitch Schwartz, and Chris. Got a hiccup there. And Chris Jones. The 49ers have 7 blue players. Raheem Mostert, George Kittle, Richard Sherman, Kwan Williams, Jimmy Ward, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead. The Saints, who I don't know why they finished second instead of first here. The Saints should have won a Super Bowl over the last 2 years. They should have been in both of them, and they probably should have won one. The Saints have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blue players, and they got a bunch of dudes on the doorstep to that grade. Jared Cook's on the doorstep, Emmanuel Sanders is on the doorstep, Eric McCoy is on the doorstep, and Marshawn Lattimore didn't qualify for it either. So with Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Teron Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Demario Davis, Marcus Williams, the Saints have a stacked roster. The Ravens are number 1 on their NFL roster rankings, and they only have 5. Lamar Jackson, Calais Campbell, Mark Andrews, the tight end, Ronnie Stanley, the left tackle, and cornerback Marcus Peters. And when you look at all the other grades on their team, it's not like they got a bunch of dudes that are close. So I don't know by what measure they decided that the Ravens were number 1, other than maybe their record last year. The Saints should be at number 1. At least according to the grades that they say they're using for this. It should be New Orleans is number 1, San Francisco probably number 2. But whatever, the Cowboys are at 6th. Now, what I want to do is talk about if the Cowboys are going to be better than 6th, right? Because you want to win the Super Bowl. You don't want to be the 6th best team in football. And I believe 1, 2, 3 of the teams in the top 5 are in the NFC. So this would make you the 4th best team in the NFC. So which guys that they don't grade great could be better than they're anticipating to turn this into a team that's even better than they're projecting? And they're projecting 6th best roster in the league. Ain't bad, right? So who could change this? 1. Last year, Leighton Vander Esch on their grading scale was a 58.6. Leighton Vander Esch, I talked about it yesterday. He's got all the ability in the world. If they can get this thing schematically figured out, if guys can just stick to doing their jobs, if you can have a defense that is not – their defense last year was so dumb. You can't run a defense where Mitch Trubisky and Jeff Driscoll and dudes like that are dropping back and knowing exactly what they're going to get every play, because that was what the Cowboys believed in. Offense and defense. We're just going to show you. We're going to line up in the way we're going to line up, and we're going to be great. No. Blitz the quarterback. Mix up your coverages. Get wild. So for me, in terms of what his grade was last year for them and the sort of player he can be, Leighton Vander Esch could be a blue player. But he was, 80 is where that starts. He was 22 points away from that a year ago. They grade Cheeto not bad, 72.2. Now, Byron Jones was a lot better than that. But at 72.2, Jordan Lewis at 68.7, and Trayvon Diggs has his college score of 88.5. If those are your 3 starters, them, even a little step. Pro Football Focus likes your safeties. Clinton Dix, 74. Xavier Woods, 73. Those are average starters to them. Another guy that could be significantly better than how they graded him. I did figure this out. I wondered how Tyron Smith could be a 76.6. The answer is, on their grading scale, they kill you for penalties. Because if you get a holding penalty, most likely that drives over, right? So it was really important. And Tyron has been the victim of some of the worst calls I've seen over the last 3 years. He's still really, really, really good. So if they just don't throw bogus flags on him, his grade is easily up into the 80s. So Tyron, that grade could absolutely go up, and I think it will. Leighton Vander Esch, that grade could go up, and I absolutely think it will if he's healthy. Blake Jarwin was a 61.4. His run blocking's never going to grade well, so don't ask him to do it. But that number could easily come up. And they have Randy Gregory penciled in as the end opposite DeMarcus Lawrence, which won't be the case. It'll be Tyrone Crawford, maybe Aldon Smith. And so they could be better than what's listed there. I think when you look at this, you go, man, I really like this roster. Holy cow, I really like this roster. They got a chance. If this secondary can play, they got a chance. The wild card, center and left guard. Because so much of what this team has done has revolved around the fact that we're going to protect our quarterback super well. We are going to run block. Last year, they were the second best run blocking team in the league. We're going to run block super well. And that's just that's a well-oiled machine when your quarterback's comfortable in the pocket getting through progressions and he can trust that he's not going to get blindsided. When your running backs have opportunities and places to go, life is good. So if you want the Cowboys to be better than the 6th best roster in football, you need Leighton Vander Esch to ball out. You need Blake Jarwin to play better than Pro Football Focus thinks he did a year ago. And you need that combination of center and left guard to be balling. That combination of center and left guard, let me rephrase that. Ballin' makes it sound like I'm talking about a couple of Pro Bowlers. They can't be weak links. Between Connor Williams, Connor McGovern, Tyler Biadasz, Joe Looney, whichever two are on the field, be adequate. Because Tyron's going to be really good. Zach Martin's going to be great. And Lyle Collins, if he repeats what he did a year ago, is going to be great. So you're in good shape there. So that's the rosters. If you're interested, this will help you win a few games next year, or it should. The 27th best roster belongs to the New York Giants. They have 0 blue players, not a one. And the 31st best roster belongs to Washington, who has 1 blue player, and that is Terry McLaurin. Although maybe Chase Young will be that right away. It's very possible. Okay, so that covers that topic. Next, Ray asks, what about Bradlee Anae? And so what I want to do is just pull up the Cowboys roster, because here's the thing about Bradlee Anae. Cowboys 5th round pick out of Utah. I had a 3rd round grade on him, thought he's a really good player. His athletic profile from the combine is bad. That's what killed him. But his ability to win as a pass rusher in different ways was really good on tape. He's a really good football player. He just didn't test well. So let's talk about Bradlee Anae. How do you fit in? McCarthy said, I'm going to keep 6 rushers and 4 interior guys. So our 6 defensive ends. DeMarcus Lawrence, Tyrone Crawford, Aldon Smith, right? Give you those 3. Now we are looking for the battle between, we've got 3. If Gregory's back, you have 4. And so if you get Gregory back, we're looking for 2 guys out of Joe Jackson, Jaylen Jelks, Dorrance Armstrong, Bradlee Anae, Rondell Carter. Now, based on his tape and what I think of him coming out of college compared to the rest of these guys, I will say, obviously you have Tank, Aldon Smith, Tyrone Crawford. For now, let's leave Randy Gregory out of it. I think that Bradlee Anae can be your 4th defensive end. Forget about can he make the roster. I think that dude could be your 4th defensive end. And I'm interested to see if Rondell Carter, the undrafted guy to James Madison, can make the team. And then Dorrance Armstrong, Joe Jackson, Jaylen Jelks could battle for the 6th defensive end spot, and none of them get it if Randy Gregory gets reinstated. So I believe in Bradlee Anae. I think he's going to make the team, and I think he could be as high as the 4th defensive end on the team right away. Rolo, I know everyone wants to cut Tyrone Crawford, but the guy has position flex. He can also play all these different positions, leader of the defense. Yeah, I don't know. I ain't cutting Tyrone Crawford. No, they missed Tyrone Crawford last year. Tyrone's a good player. There was a time where everybody was obsessed with his cap number, but you're getting to the end of the contract now, and he is a leader of the team, and he's a good player. I ain't worried about Tyrone Crawford. And Russell says, given the awesome trio of wide receivers we now have, if you were the OC, what are a few fun things you would incorporate or run with this offense? I would run a handoff to a wide receiver at least twice a game. Whether it's Amari Cooper or whether it's CeeDee Lamb, those are the 2 I'd give it to the most. But I think that's part of what makes San Francisco's run game great is they're unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know, is Deebo Samuel going to end up with the ball? Running back's going to get the ball? It's the way that they're just not predictable. I would do that. And finally, Taggart wanted to know, he said, remember when it was either Lawrence or Tyron Smith was talking about a lot of their success coming from the high level of competition at training camp. Does that work for our secondary this year? I think so, because if you're a starting corner, when you do the one-on-ones, generally you try to have the starters match up with the starters, and you don't want to have CeeDee Lamb run a route on your 7th corner because who's winning here? Yeah, I think that can absolutely help you. If you're working on letting these guys play press man, and every day you've got Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb going at it with Cheeto and Trayvon Diggs and Reggie Robinson and Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown, yeah, I think absolutely everybody benefits from that level of competition. So let's get it. All right, I got a meeting I got to get to. I'm working on something big to help the world make it a better place. And so I have a meeting for that, and you'll hear about it soon, I promise. Make sure, go with the thumbs up, leave in the comments what you want to talk about tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed and that you have the notifications turned on. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow or today on the radio.